What I'm discussing is teenagers, right? Understanding of teenagers, yeah. And it seems like something that's very obvious and something that we all understand because we all were once a teenager. But I'd say that this topic it infers that at some point we lose connection to what it means to be a teenager. We lose, you know, the relatability, right, to what teenagers go through. And it's normal because life has a way of toughening us up and making it so that, the things that we freaked out about as a 16-year-old now is a mere mishap to us. It's an afterthought. So it doesn't mean a lot to us. And that's a good thing. It means maturity. However, what we can't lose is the empathy. Empathy is a very important thing that when life really roughens you up, it's hard to be empathic towards people that go through lesser things, right? Because imagine you've broken your leg, right? And you've scraped your knee before, but that was nothing compared to breaking your leg. And your friend calls you up and he's like, I just had such a hard week because I scraped my knee and I couldn't get anything done because my knee was scraped and it hurt so bad. Are you thinking, well, it's not that big of a deal, I've broken my knee before, it's not that bad? Or are you able to still empathize with them and understand that, that is a difficulty as well. You scraped your knee, that's not fun. For those who think that there's no room for empathy when it comes to, relatively inferior situations, you've got to understand that, let me just give an example. Imagine you're having a really bad day, right? You've had a really rough day and it's the end of the day and you're praying to Jesus. You're saying, oh Lord, today drained me. I had a really tough day. I went to drop off my kid and I was getting there and I was late. And then when I realized I got there, I realized I didn't bring their lunch. So then I rushed back, and then when I got home, I misplaced my key, and then I had to cycle there, and then I fell down, and it was just a mess. God, today was hard. You're telling Jesus that. And Jesus says, well, that's hard, but, were you betrayed? Were you spat on? Were you beaten? Were your hands nailed to the cross? Do you have nails in your leg? Were you on the cross? Imagine Jesus was telling you that because, that's the worst thing. He went through the whole passion, yet God still has empathy for us. He still holds a place for us. He still pleads for us to the Father every single day, regardless of the pain that he went through. He still has empathy for the little things that we struggle with. And that's an important thing, because a teen might tell you like, Mom, Jimmy was mad at me today, and I can't believe it, Mom. It was the worst thing ever. And Veronica, she yelled at me, and you're just like, well, Jimmy, you're not going to know them in 10 years. You can answer like that to your kid one time, 2 times, but after you do that a couple of times, they just won't talk to you about little things like that. And when they're little, not telling you about their little kid drama, that's not a big deal, but they'll grow when they're older to when they don't talk to you anymore because you're just going to preach to them or tell them that it doesn't matter or tell them that the worst things or they'll grow up and life will be harder and you'll just keep preaching to them. So your kids won't feel like they can talk to you. So to understand a teenager, you need empathy because you're at a above level. You've gone through life. You've been there. You've gone through it. But you still need to be able to understand their feelings and to, be attuned with it. If you look at Colossians 3, verse 12, it says, therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. I ask for patience because parents might get frustrated, they get frustrated with their kids, with their teens, because they just can't understand them. They can't seem to rationalize with them. And I think if you understand them on a cognitive level, you'll be able to make sense of it more. Because a teen's brain, the pubescent mind, it goes through a lot of transformation. It's the time of rapid brain development. And if you look at it more specifically, the amygdala, that's what they call the emotional center of the brain. That's the part that develops really young, and it drives the strong emotional reactions, right? And in a teenager, it's highly active. So they'll feel emotions intensely, and they might react quickly. Or you might see that they're all over the place. And the part that's responsible for that is the amygdala. We also have the frontal lobe, more specifically, the prefrontal cortex. Now, that part of the brain, it doesn't develop as fast. That's the part of the brain that's responsible for planning and decision making, it's impulse control, long-term thinking. But this part doesn't fully develop until you're in your mid-20s. So a teenager might find it hard to regulate their emotions, weigh out consequences, and resist impulses. So we can imagine this as the amygdala being an accelerator, right? So it's an accelerator, and the frontal lobe is the brakes. When a teenager's young, they're developing, their brakes are not really developed. So it's imagine your kid is on a bike that doesn't work. It's dangerous. The bike with no brakes, it's dangerous. They might, cycle for long enough, and you might see yourself getting like falling off a cliff because there's no brakes. So parents, we ought to act as brakes for our kids. We ought to be the frontal lobe to them, to tell them when things are right or wrong. But I don't know about you, a brake on a bike, I don't know how to fix it. Seems like quite a complicated mechanism, right? There's wires and everything needs to be in place for the brakes to work. So as parents, you need to figure out how can you be the brake to your kid in the right way. That doesn't mean just saying no to everything. It's not how it works. It's more complex than that. You need to have a relationship with them. You need to understand them so they're able to listen to you, right? So if you're always dismissing them, when you tell them, oh, you can't go to the party, it's dangerous, they'll be like, this is just them dismissing me again. They won't understand that you're trying to do something for them. So when you ask me, how do you understand a teenager? I'll tell you, you need patience. You need compassion. You need to be able to resonate with their feelings. And you need to know what it means to be the brakes to your own personal kid. Amen?